Why, this pesky little question keeps popping into my head lately. When people say everything happens for a reason, do they really think that, or is that just a way to move on and make sense of something that doesn't make sense at all? I've always said people come into our lives for a reason, and things always happen for a reason. But is that truly what I believe? At times, life feels like it's in slow motion, and everything that seems so clear becomes a complete blur. I wonder, was there anything I could have said or done to make life turn out differently? Would I want it to be different? Everything happens for a reason, right? Who am I? I'm a little girl that came out full of shit. No, literally. I ate my own poop in the womb. Surprise! I had to be delivered early. Being delivered 7 weeks before my due date may have been the beginning of an unbreakable bond between me and my mom. People called me the Velcro child. I remember never wanting to be separated from my mom. She was my security blanket. She was my mom. She was so in touch with me and recognized that I was having difficulty learning at an early age. I vaguely remember playing a game with Skittles to learn my colors. She would say, "Hand me the yellow Skittle," and if I gave her the yellow Skittle, she would put it in a pile for me, and I could eat it. If I made a mistake in handing her the right color of Skittle, she would keep it until I was able to correctly tell her the right color. She made learning fun, even though it was hard, and I often got confused. I was a very sickly kid growing up and was diagnosed with a learning disability, anxiety, and attention deficit disorder at the age of 5. I'm an out-of-box thinker who never fit the norm. As I sat in class, my palms were so sweaty with the fear that my teacher would call on me next. I had no idea what she was saying. I felt like she was speaking a foreign language, and I did not comprehend, no matter how hard I tried. I tried to not look at her, in the hopes that she would not call on me next. I looked at my neighbor and wondered how on earth she knew what was going on. Was my brain not working properly? Why didn't my brain work like hers? I looked at the clock, and I hoped it was time to go home. Phew! It was time to go home. I knew, once I arrived home, that my mom could explain everything I didn't understand while I was in school. She was my person. Well, that is, she spoke my language. I never let the labels of LD, ADD, or anxiety disorder define me. Just because my teachers struggled to understand the way I learned best didn't mean I wasn't capable of learning. I spent most of my childhood going to tutoring, studying, and working hard to overcome the obstacles I faced in school. Who am I? I'm perseverance. When? Well, here's a question that keeps creeping in and begs to be remembered. As I have grown older, I often find myself reminiscing the time I spent with my mom as a child. Certain things tend to stick out in my mind more vividly than others do, but they have all shaped the person I have become, whether they were life-changing events or something as simple as going to work with my mom. When I look back, I remember all of the time I spent with her. I remember going on trips to Colorado, playing games, reading stories, doing homework, watching movies, and going shopping together. But the most vivid memory I have of my childhood is undeniable, the one I cherish most, just hanging out with my mom. I can still feel the warmth of your legs and the touch of your fingertips as we snuggled on the couch and you ran your fingers through my hair. I feel a sense of calm rush over me when I think of your reassuring words and touch when I needed reassurance the most. Just the idea of knowing you'd be there brings me joy, comfort, and peace. When did you become my most loyal companion and best friend? Where? If you were to ask anyone who knew me as a young child, they would probably tell you I was attached to my mom's apron strings, and I would never veer far from home. That is why my next question is shocking to some. As a young child, I always wanted to go to France and talked about it all the time. If I couldn't have France as a destination spot to study abroad, then anywhere in Europe would do. Well, that didn't happen. My program of study had limited study abroad opportunities, and Europe was not one of them. However, what started out as a compromise to my childhood dream ended up being an experience of a lifetime. Believe it or not, I embarked on an adventure halfway across the world in New Zealand. On a beautiful day in New Zealand, my friend and I decided to have a little adventure and took a bus up a dirt windy road with the coast on our left and the mountains on our right. It was the most beautiful drive, and after reaching the top of the road, I exited the bus and paid $275 to the cashier. The attendant proceeded to put a harness on me, and I hopped in the cart that would take me to the building that was swaying in the wind. The building was held up by 4 wires that were attached to different points of the mountain. I was gliding across to the building, and I remembered thinking how scared I was just getting to the building. Here we were, in a tiny metal building with a glass floor, 334 meters above the Nevis River, about to swing in the world's largest swing in Queenstown, New Zealand. I have to be honest, it wasn't my idea to pay hard-earned money to ride the world's largest swing, but it definitely would be something I would remember forever. There was a long metal pathway that the building stretched out and away from the mountaintop. As I was walking up, they were doing test runs to make sure that the swing was working properly. I was scared and thinking to myself, why do they have to do a test run? Is there something wrong with it? I was so scared, but I had already paid $275 and there was no refund if I chickened out. It felt like the walk up to the building took forever. As we reached the building, there were 2 people coming back from the swing. There was one couple in front of us and the girl chickened out. I thought to myself, is it that bad? Should I not do this? It was our turn, and as I strapped in, I clung to the arm of my friend and vowed not to let go until my feet were on solid ground again. Well, that was until the guy strapping me in made me hold on to the rope instead.
Keep looking! Look!
As he pulled the cord to release the swing, we flew straight down. It felt like we were flying in the air. In that moment, I knew if I could do this, I could do anything. As my feet landed back on solid ground, I never felt more alive and relieved in that moment. I felt like I was truly living. I still wonder if where I studied abroad was actually one of those things we say happens for a reason. Were the apron strings finally severed? Would I still be the Velcro child? Only time would tell. How? I'm still in shock when I think about the next question that I continually perseverate on. How can you say everything happens for a reason when a person you love most suddenly is diagnosed with a life-altering condition? How can one day change a person's life and the people who love that person's life forever? It was August 15, 2015, and my mom went for a walk to check on the signs for our garage sale. It was hot and humid, and I was wondering how we were going to sell all this junk before the rain moved in. In the distance, I saw my mom walking home as I finished giving the change to a couple buying a children's book. I hadn't sold much today and was beginning to regret my decision to have a garage sale in the first place. As I looked up from giving the couple their change, I heard a gasp from their mouth and saw my mom approaching me covered in blood, with a confused and scared look on her face. I dropped the money and ran up to her asking what happened. She didn't know, and I could tell she was scared. My neighbor frantically waved her arms and told me to put my mom in the car, and we rushed to the hospital. My dad met us at the hospital, where we learned, after many tests, that my mom had had a seizure. Over the next several months, she continued to have several seizures a day. It has been a little over 2 years now, and my mom has been diagnosed with epilepsy. I'm still in awe with her attitude and perseverance to live a normal life. How could this be? She was my rock, and now I was in the position to be her rock and support. That leads me to the final question nagging in my brain. What? What do you think people really mean when they say everything happens for a reason, and people come into our lives for a reason? I am not sure everything happens for a reason, or the people who come into our lives are put there for a reason. But I do know that there are some people and experiences that shape and mold us. For better or for worse, we are the sum of our life experiences.